Welcome to this visual guide. Think of today's explainer as your personal roadmap to developing true emotional intelligence. We're going to explore the fascinating neuroscience behind why we feel what we feel, map out the absolute biological extremes of human connection, and most importantly, give you the tools to better understand your own mind. But right off the bat, I want you to ask yourself, are you the kind of person who easily drowns in the feelings of a crowded room? Or do you tend to navigate emotional situations with a cool, calculated detachment? It's a fundamental difference in how we experience the world, and honestly, it all comes down to how your brain is wired. Here is the roadmap for our explainer today. We'll be looking at 1. The empathy spectrum, 2. Cognitive versus affective empathy, 3. The dangers of excess, 4. Building healthy boundaries, and finally, 5. Cultivating mental balance. Let's dive right in. Starting with Section 1, the empathy spectrum. We tend to think of empathy as a simple on and off switch, right? Like you either have it or you don't. But psychologist Simon Cohen actually proved it's a massive bell curve. Most of us sit somewhere in the middle, but there are some incredible outliers on both ends. And here's the really wild part. Science shows that 50% of our baseline empathy drive is entirely inherited at birth. It's directly linked to variants of the OXTR gene. That means your starting line for emotional sensitivity is literally written in your DNA, while the other half gets shaped by your early childhood environment. Way back in the 18th century, philosopher David Hume famously noted that minds are mirrors to one another. And guess what? Modern neuroscience proves he hit the nail right on the head. Neuroscientist Antonio Damasio's research confirms we have actual physical mirror neurons firing in our prefrontal cortex. When you see someone get hurt, those neurons automatically simulate their emotional state right inside your own head. It's like biological Wi-Fi. Which brings us to Section 2, cognitive versus affective empathy. You see, empathy isn't just one single monolithic thing. It actually splits into two very distinct biological functions, and understanding this split is an absolute game changer. On one side, you've got cognitive empathy. This is your ability to understand what someone is thinking using cold, calculated logic. On the flip side is affective empathy, actually physically absorbing that warm emotional resonance into your own body. And the kicker is, you can have off-the-charts levels of one while completely lacking the other. Just look at the psychopathy split. As psychologist Paul Bloom points out, highly low empathy individuals, like clinical psychopaths, often have what you could call a cold, frozen compass. They have incredibly high cognitive understanding. They grasp the rules of human pain perfectly, but because they have a physically shrunken amygdala, their emotional smoke detector is essentially broken. The alarm just never actually registers in their body. Let's move on to Section 3, the dangers of excess. So if low empathy is a broken compass, having maximum emotional empathy just has to be a good thing, right? Well, actually, no. On the exact opposite side of the spectrum are the hyper-empaths. Neurobiologist Robert Sapolsky found that these folks literally absorb ambient stress from the people around them. This triggers massive cortisol spikes, stress hormones, that cause real physical wear and tear on their bodies. Their superpower literally becomes a physiological burden. When you feel absolutely everything without any kind of filter, healthy compassion devolves into what's known as empathic distress. Think of it like a heavy iron anchor dragging a ship deep under a turbulent, stormy sea. You get pulled under by the waves of other people's suffering until you're completely paralyzed. And let's be honest, you can't actually help anyone if you're drowning yourself. This leads to a fascinating warning from Paul Bloom. He argues that overwhelming emotional empathy can actually blind our moral judgment. He calls it a poorly targeted, narrow spotlight. It makes us care so intensely about one immediate, visible issue right in front of us that we completely ignore the wider and maybe much more important picture. So how do we fix this? Let's look at Section 4, building healthy boundaries. To protect our mental equilibrium and actually be of use to the world, we have to establish boundaries. I absolutely love this insight from researcher Brené Brown. Her work highlights a really counterintuitive truth. The most genuinely compassionate people are not the ones acting like emotional sponges. The most compassionate people actually have the most rigid, defensive boundaries about what they allow into their mental space. And we desperately need those boundaries to avoid the tribal trap of parochial empathy. Sapolsky's research shows that our brains effortlessly turn off our empathy switch for anyone we label as an outsider. This outgroup filter means that deep,
unchecked caring for your own tribe can actually fuel extreme hatred toward another group. It is a massive biological blind spot.
Because emotional resonance fluctuates with things as simple as how tired we are or what kind of mood we're in. It's basically an unstable bridge made of fraying ropes. That's why philosopher Immanuel Kant argued we need something way stronger. Our moral actions have to be anchored in stable, rational principles, not just the fleeting, unpredictable warmth of emotional empathy.
Which brings us to our final part, Section 5, cultivating mental balance. So how do we actively shape our internal wiring? The sweet spot we're aiming for here is called regulated compassion. If you're naturally a low empathy individual, you need to intentionally develop cognitive principles to guide you. If you're a hyper-empath, you've got to build robust emotional shields. The whole goal is to help others without destroying your own peace in the process.
Long before modern brain scans proved that even psychopaths can manually switch on empathy pathways when prompted, Aristotle already had this figured out. He taught that our moral and emotional responses aren't fixed life sentences, they're habits. And just like going to the gym, we can deliberately practice and strengthen them over time.
You can start building this habit today with a few direct cognitive behavioral steps. First, consciously identify the emotional trigger when it hits. Second, validate the emotion. Just acknowledge it's there. And third, systematically detach from the external stress. You observe the emotion, sure, but you do not absorb what isn't yours. Think of healthy emotional intelligence this way. You don't want to extinguish the flames of your empathy. You don't want to go cold. Instead, picture your empathy as a roaring fire safely contained inside a sturdy stone fireplace. The fire gives off incredible warmth and light, but those solid stones ensure it doesn't burn the whole house down. Philosopher Martha Nussbaum reminds us that recognizing our shared vulnerability is the ultimate bridge here. Once we realize that everyone is just navigating life with completely different neurological toolkits, we can connect with profound grace, whether we're dealing with a highly sensitive hyper-empath or someone with a very cold compass. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a vital question to think about today. Where do you truly sit on the empathy spectrum? And more importantly, what kind of stone fireplace do you need to start building around your own emotions? Thanks for exploring this with us and keep seeking that balance.